Well, you know what? Steph, just in case, I should just turn it on. Just in case.
7 o'clock too when you're up, while you're up.
That's all I see. Yes. I'm just lost.
To join a conference now.
No, she's already seen one.
If you have a meeting home,
She didn't make an accent.
Oh, I say, oh.
Sure. Very good. Actually gone for 5. I had to go South Carolina for business on a week and then just continued.
We can all rise for the pledge, please. Tom, can you lead us to the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A moment of silence for the men and women in the armed forces, our first responders, and those brave men and women fighting the fight in the Ukraine.
One nation, under God, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Mary Jane, are you on? That was her.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what I thought.
Okay. First, do we have anybody, Sal, that wants to speak in the public? Public participation.
Yes, one person, Mr. Mike Asinello.
Okay.
Mike.
So I don't know how we're going to be able to go about this, but the slides for presentations are still here on the computer. So I guess if somebody wants to take that seat, I can get set up so that somebody can do it from that, operate that from that seat if people want to access them. If you guys want me to do it, then that's fine, I'll do it. But you're going to have to bear with me because it's going to take about a minute or two to get up here and get
Thanks, Mike.
the slide that's available.
Awesome.
And the other thing I'll say real quick too, because I don't have the time to talk about the law of triviality, which I'll have to do another night. But I'm hoping the mayor will set aside just a minute to explain where we are in the process and what's upcoming, and the purpose for tonight's meeting, which is the budget deliberations. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Okay. Did somebody, Mary Jane, did you say something?
And the purpose of tonight's meeting, which is the budget deliberation.
That's a delay. Yeah, I think the
Oh, the
audience
back
coming
feed.
through her phone.
The back feed. Okay. All right. So,
She have her
I think they just
video
need to
on,
mute.
maybe?
Yeah, she's got the video on.
Put the phone on mute
Yeah.
when they're listening.
Yeah.
Mary Jane, can you put the phone on mute because we're getting the back feed?
Oh, the back feed. Okay.
Might not be in. Who else is that?
So-
This is why when you go to executive session,
Okay.
you can't be on the phone.
Well, we'll just continue and move on that way, I guess. Thank you.
She got it. Okay. 3-minute delay, huh? She got it. I don't think so. I think it's here.
We'll just continue to move on.
Okay.
Can we turn that thing down?
Well, then if she says something, we can't hear her.
I won't be able.
She needs to mute her phone.
Or turn off.
She's got a muted phone.
There's 50% volume.
That's better.
Yeah, that's
It's not quite as annoying.
Crank up my hearing aid so when she talks.
Who are you?
Mary Jane, you're just going to have to yell at me.
No, it's not funny, really, it's true.
She was fine
Okay.
the other times.
She didn't have the.
All right.
Maybe, okay.
So thank you to the council, and first of all, thank you to all of our department heads presented. Thank you to the Board of Education that presented to the Town Council, and to the public who's been watching. This next phase are deliberations tonight, and if the council so chooses, they can make any adjustments to the mayor's recommended budget and the superintendent's budget, which was the Board of Education's adjusted budget. Can also make any adjustments if they so choose there. After the deliberations are completed and voted on, this budget then would move to the Board of Finance. Board of Finance then would have a public hearing. They would make any recommended adjustments that they would see fit per category, can't be line item. And then that would go to the Budget They would set the date for a referendum, it would go to the public, and the public would vote on both the town and the Board of Education budgets as they were amended. Does anybody have any questions on the process? Okay.
Okay.
Well, we're gonna wait for Greg. He's gonna post up the mill rate calculation as we move forward. So as Greg's working that together, currently with the budget as proposed, it is at 1.70% increase. Okay, Katie?
Yes, I'd like to move to accept the mayor's recommended budget for the town of New Milford at a total of $41,835,714.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah.
Mike?
In general, I think we're in a little discussion. It's just this, and this is a general statement for all of the budgets, and I know that a lot of this stuff is contractual with salaries and whatnot, but everyone's costs in the world are going up right now, as we all know. But salaries won't be. And I know, owning two businesses, at the club I have to pay some of my employees more, supplies, everything else is going up. But we are in a competitive environment, and new gym's coming in. I can't increase wages like I'd love to help the kids out and the adults out. In my other business, our costs are going up, but I have contracts out there that I've already bid on that I've won. So my expenses are going up, but my costs are going up, so I can't raise prices. So people's wages are gonna be flat in the best scenario, but every expense is going up, and that includes taxes if we pass these. Now, I understand they were both very well thought out, trim budgets, but as we do this, you have to understand the environment we're in, that even a 3% increase on their taxes, or whatever it adds out, which I'm sure you'll get into how much tax increase there'll be based on the budgets.
Currently, Mike, combined, it's 1.7%.
Yeah, and as I said, with flat, it adds up. What is that per? So if someone has a house worth $100,
He's got up there from.
Average household, $105.80.
okay, so which isn't a lot. Which I'm saying we have to understand these constraints going into next year, because expenses are going to go up and incomes aren't, and it's just something we have to look at. But as I said, I'm supporting the budget. I do agree with it.
So I was when you were doing the motion, Katie, I was kind of focusing on the mill rate change. So the motion in front of us is for the town budget?
The town budget only,
town budget only.
$41,835,714.
Yeah, I mean, I think the department heads did a really good job in, looking for efficiencies. I also like how we're now spreading out the reassessment funding instead of taking it in a slug in 1 year. Waste management fund, I'd like that to always be zero, but we're still keeping that pretty low. So I think the team did a really good job, and I'm very supportive of the town budget.
I know when I first got here, Greg, what were we doing with waste management? $1.2 million, $1.5 million? Somewhere around there?
No, we didn't last year.
No, when we first started.
Well, it was traditionally we're able to use 10% of the current available budget, so.
But we've whittled it down now to $500,000.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Which is great.
And how much, and we can only use it for so much longer. When do we run out?
You could theoretically use it till you have no money.
Oh, I thought we
No.
were limited in
But
time frame to
what
use it
I've
for
always
tax
said was
abatement.
you have one more payment,
Yeah, that's
and now you gotta figure out what you're gonna do, because you don't have that
Right.
injection anymore.
Got it.
That's right.
Okay.
Which is
great.
why we've been trying to whittle it down.
Yep,
maybe we'll
thank
get
you.
ARPA funds next year.
Okay, Mayor? I have a comment.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Hillary.
I would like to make an amendment to the motion to increase the mayor's proposed budget by $74,251, increasing all of the non-union town staff salaries by 2% in order to cover their opt-in costs. To pay for this, I would decrease the mayor's office budget by 18,956 and the Economic Development Corporation by 55,295.
Is that your motion?
That's the motion.
I'll second it.
Can you, I'm sorry, can you,
Okay.
mayor's office by what?
Mayor's office by 18,956.
And then,
Economic Development Corporation by 55,295.
Yes.
And for the discussion, and just to back up what I'm saying, I fully support, as I voted yes, on increasing the mayor's, the new Milford mayor's position, the salary, compensation for that position, by 21%. But I believe that in the time we've just come out of and where we are, it would be better spread across 2 years. So that brings us from 17,913 to 8,956 this year. And then next year's budget, we put in 9,656. We reduced the tourism line from 30 to 20. I'm looking at what has already been spent in tourism, and we're right about there now. So, and also with the, the growth of the Economic Development Corporation and Committee, that's going to be a more robust situation. The Economic Development Corporation personnel reduces from 88,257 to 32,962. For the consultants, I think that any additional need could be brought to the town council for approval because this is a public-private partnership. So in fact, I think it would be really beneficial to know in advance what the corporation is thinking, who they're thinking of bringing before, and we can vote yes or no on that, that presentation. As of now, the EDC has spent 23% of that line item. So they have a surplus of 120,000 in there right now. I believe that, to be the best town in the USA, we have to be the best town in the USA to work in. And I think that those extra dollars and salaries will be spent in our town. These are, people will go out to dinner with that extra $1,000. They'll spend money in the stores. So I think we've had an influx of COVID relief money into the budget, and I think that this is putting money into our town employees who deserve it.
Thank you. Any other comments when it comes to the motion? Okay.
I'd like to, obviously, a lot of work went into this by everybody and all the departments, and I think all of our departments have reduced and gotten more efficient, and I don't believe that there's a need to decrease or take anything out of it. I do think that if you take extra money to pay some wages, and Hillary, I understand what you're saying, but there's a point at which, as Mike mentioned about his business, where you could put in jeopardy the business itself, or in our world here of municipality, we could put in jeopardy the work that needs to be done by various departments. And if you spend the money in one place, there's only so much money. We know that our taxpayers like to keep the taxes down. This is, after 2 years of nothing, this is a small enough raise, although it is a raise. To say it's $105 a year for a household may not seem like a lot. However, there are people that is $2 a week, and that's a lot of money for them when you have children and not enough money coming in from your job. People are still suffering from COVID. You don't need to hear all that. You know it. I'm just saying is that I think this is a reasonable budget. It's a tolerable amount for the majority. We did a lot with ARPA to help to get to this point. We have a new library opening. We have a fantastic job by all our departments, social services, for the people who need it. I just think that it's the best that we can do, and I have to say a specific thing, just to one of the things you said, Hillary, is that asking the mayor in any, whether it's this mayor or any of them, as you know, I went through all of that, and it was about a $500 increase over 12 years, which is shameful. So I think asking this mayor who's now that much farther into years from when we first started doing that $500 overall. There were years nothing happened. I think it would be shameful. We've looked at salaries of all the people that work for the town, and they're all great people, and they're very deserving. I think to say to a mayor who does as much as our current mayor does, and others before him, and I'm sure after him they will also do that, but I think I would still say, I'm very embarrassed that I ever had to find that out. I'm glad I found it out, but I was very embarrassed to have to bring it to the public, and I do not at all support having HALF.
I think the key piece
So that's
okay.
just my feeling about what you said. Otherwise, I'm 100% in favor of this budget the way
The
it is.
key piece is we're asking people to opt in with 2%. So we have
So-
to
They
provide,
don't
build
have
that
to, though,
in.
Mr.
They don't
Valero?
have to, but
There are other
Someone come up
options.
front,
There
please.
are other options, you know that, right? That they can choose the options. Here's our HR guy.
But it makes sense for us to have them opt in. It makes sense for the
So
fund.
Greg, can
and
you
for them.
first of all talk a little bit about the 2%? Is the 2% a voluntary one, or can they opt out of it and still be exactly as they are today?
So employees will have the option to opt out and to stay in the current pension plan. So that is something, if they feel strongly that they are not in a position or they don't wish to join the new platform, they can do that. But for the feedback that I've gotten from the employees, there's a lot of excitement around moving to the 2%.
And Greg, can you kind of, for those that may be new, or those that are watching on our live feed here, why would it make sense for someone to actually opt in with that? What benefits do they have? What would be the increase in their pension?
So the increase, take an average salary of $80,000. That pension at full max value would be $40,000 a year at 1.6. At the 2% contribution, it goes up to $48,000. So it's an $8,000 per year increase in their pension. The feedback that I've gotten from the employees, they're very appreciative of that. And I expect.
So it's like a 20% bump annually?
Yeah. And I expect a very high amount of people to opt in.
Thank you.
But it's not mandatory.
Not mandatory,
Right.
right. So that was what was discussed. It is not mandatory. We do have some people that are very close to the rule of 85, and it's a very tough decision. I've had conversations with at least 2 employees that run into this situation where they could retire at 61 years old, and now they have to wait an additional 4 years. So from that, they have a decision to make.
Well, they could retire.
They can retire.
right.
Right. They just wouldn't be
Just
able to
make that
collect
clear.
until
We're not
65.
keeping them here if they wanted to retire.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right.
Any other, Tom?
Financially.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank all the department heads in town and across the education system for the great work you've done on this budget. I think it was carefully crafted. I'm going to support the mayor's recommended budget. I will not support this amendment. I don't think it is wise. If 13 years of sitting in this seat have told me one thing, rash changes at the table have never really worked. It's mostly just a political stunt. I hate to say it to Hillary, it's a political stunt.
Actually, it is
So
not.
I'm going to fully support the budget. I was very pleased to hear how many of the departments, after many years of pushing, have adopted full integration to the technology, such as the building department. When I heard that, even though I was listening, I was very proud, and I know the mayor was, because he and I made that push 13 years ago, and again 12 years ago, and 11 years ago, and 10 years ago, and we kept pushing. And now today, we have one of the most technologically advanced towns in the state, and probably in the country. When I first got here, we were doing things by paper. You know, we had green screens in the finance office running 1988 software, right? You had to print out, if you had to print one page of the grand list, you had to print all 500 in one shot. You couldn't isolate it. We had telephones that when you were on the phone, you couldn't leave a voicemail. So the progress that has been made here under tremendous leadership, and especially the last 4.5 to 5 years under the mayor, has been outstanding. I do have some very small concerns
the library being one of them, but I'm going to give the library the benefit of the doubt because we have a beautiful facility being completed, and I think after this next year, we're going to find out what that facility really needs. I remember the design was very clear to be able to watch people from a distance. It wasn't these little compartmentalized boxes that gave supervision from afar. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt this year. Separately, I just want to make one general comment in the way we do projects. This is for every municipality. I've sat in this room for a long time, and I remember approving monies for projects and announcing it right here on TV and in the newspaper. We're going to spend X amount of dollars to do this, and then we put it out to bid. And of course, everybody knows the number, right? If you're in the business world like I am, like many of us at this table are, you know, when I send out a package to a subcontractor, I don't tell him how much I'm willing to pay him. I'm looking for his best price to meet the spec. Now, there's many towns across the country that are doing that. Bedford Hills in New York, many others that are going away from the big announcement, we have $8 million to spend, to doing a design build type of platform where you create the spec, you know what you want, and then you put it out for a design build. The savings is tremendous. You usually get a better, more innovative project, and I think it's something we need to look at in the years to come. It would serve our town and our taxpayers very well. I will be fully supporting this budget 100% as the mayor has recommended, and a great job by all. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, just real quick on Economic Development Corporation. It's one of those things, and it's like any business that cuts their marketing budget when things are tight. You want the growth, the amount on their grand list. If that grows, then we can also grow other things because it won't affect the taxpayers. And if we have a consultant come in and we say, you know what, we need to fill a big box store somewhere in here, and he goes, looks for it and brings it back here, pays for himself for the next 20 years. That's the purpose of the corporation. And if you say that anytime we want to do something, they got to come before the corporation in order to get approval, that slows the process. And one of the reasons we set up the Economic Development Corporation is to speed those things up, is to allow, put on people that are part of the community that aren't going to want to tarnish their reputation, put them on that board from all different areas and make quicker decisions. And that I think would slow down immensely if they had to come to the council for approval. That's just my opinion. Now, if you want to argue how well the corporation's done throughout the years, it's been a roller coaster depending on who's in charge and whatnot. But we have a really good group, and as I said, we would love to have a few more of you to replace some of the people that aren't coming enough to get a bigger swath. But it has so much potential right now with the group that's involved in there, and I just hate to see it cut.
Chris?
I would just say one thing about your amendment, Hillary. I was on the bipartisan subcommittee that looked at non-union employee compensation, and I think we met quite often, and we looked at a lot of data, and I think one thing we all realized is it's really difficult for people sitting around this table to have a great grasp on what any of the employee base should be paid in terms of salary, which is a very personal thing, and it's based on their duties and their job descriptions, which could be different than any other towns. I think we felt that the corporate model of, as a board of directors, I think we have some say over the CEO's compensation, but the rest of that really needs to be done within the organization.
That's why this is a flat 2% raise of the mayor's recommendation, which comes from the department head. So I'm not saying that I'm not changing that ratio at all.
Not changing the ratio, but you are changing the actual amount. So to me, that's something that personally I would leave them to work it out.
I just wanted to answer to some other things that were said, because I think it's really important about this Economic Development Corporation. It is a public-private partnership. And I just want to be clear that this $88,257 is a portion of the budget. The entire budget is, what is it, $165,717. So that's just a piece of it. That's the piece that is for consultants to come in. So they don't have to come before the town council for everything that they spend. Just if they're gonna hire a consultant, it would be nice to have that public component to that partnership be engaged, right? So
Hillary,
engage
Hillary,
the public.
The town would be hiring the consultant, not
Right.
the corporation. So the town,
Mm-hmm.
just like you see with Dale Croup coming in with the Health and Sciences Cluster,
Right,
and he comes to update the town council, they would be doing the same thing.
exactly. But the funding and the approval of who we hire to bring in to talk about our economic development would be decided, and this is just if it runs over the 35,000, which it hasn't this year. So as of now, that would have covered this year. The other piece is, this is why I approved the ARPA funding for the sewer, the sewer connection fee, because
Abatement.
that's a place to get the businesses to come and sign on. So I hear you in the economic development, we don't want to stunt the growth, but that's why I approved that. But this is, we're talking about asking employees to contribute to the, contribute 2%, and I think that we have it in this budget, it's here. We can, we can do this for the people of the town, so that's, I'll stop there, but.
Okay. Any other discussion?
So
Sal?
the economic development, in my opinion, and I'm very interested in how it's gonna operate and everything, it's gonna be the futuristic feature of what we're gonna be doing here. So to count something like this, and have decent access to database nowadays, annual fee costs about $25,000. I'm just saying, I don't know if they're gonna use it, whatever they're gonna use it. Those guys came and stood in front of us, and they gotta explain the good stuff, that are into the business, they know what they're doing and everything else. First of all, it's easy to measure. It's easy to find out what the future, some of the directions is gonna be, and it's relatively easy to control it. To cut something like this, I think makes no sense to me.
Any other discussion on the amendment? So we have a motion and a second on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry.
In favor of the amendment?
Yes.
In favor of your own amendment?
Yes, I.
Vote for your own.
Those opposed? Okay, motion fails. Okay, next, do we have any other amendments to the town budget? Okay, now we have Katie's amendment, and we have a second.
I have a motion.
A motion
I
and a
have a
second,
motion and a
sorry.
second from Tom Esposito.
Yep. Any discussion?
I just have one more quick discussion on that, and it's just really a question, but it really jumped out at me in my research. I just was curious, and if it is some sort of a mistake, in the police budget, the police private, so it's different in the budget we got, on the 24th than it is in here, but we seem to have a surplus of about 250,000. What is that?
So Greg, can you talk about the police,
It's, so in here, it's listed
one where we get
under
the-
police private duty, and this one, but in the budget, it's constable or something?
Right,
Yeah.
it's constable service, it's the services that outside vendors hire our police officers when they have jobs to direct traffic and so forth. Traditionally, we've budgeted both the expenditure and revenue side of that operation at $50,000. Obviously, we do better than that on both sides. This is a moneymaker for us. But we have to also keep in mind that we have a 2.5% spending cap imposed by the state of Connecticut. And whereby we know that this is a moneymaker for us. We budget $50,000 on each side to balance it out. And at the end of the year, I true up with any kind of adjustments. I adjust the budget to reflect the additional amounts that we spend over the $50,000, and it comes from the revenue that is raised from that operation.
So it's not, it's almost a wash because
Well, it's actually a
spending the
money
money.
maker. It's a money maker.
Of about 380,000.
What's that?
Isn't it a surplus? So we budget we budget that we're gonna get 50,000 in revenue, but we actually take.
We get more,
Right.
sure, right. We
But our
never know
costs
what
are
we're gonna
probably
spend
over
in
budget as
that.
well.
We don't know what the demand is going to be in any given
Okay.
year.
Thank you.
Joe?
I'm going to piggyback on Mr. Cosgrove's comment about having been on the committee for the non-union staff salaries and as to how personal that is, salaries. And yet, we find it necessary to put the name of every police officer and their salary in this book. I hope we get that turned around
It
soon
is.
when we're done.
It's off.
Thank you.
I wasn't sure how you stood on that.
I know, that's how I keep you on your toes, Mike.
You sure, Joe?
Okay.
Glad you clarified that tonight.
All right, we have a motion and we have a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Did Mary Jane, did you vote?
Yeah, I'm opposed.
Opposed, okay.
Okay. Next, Katie?
Yes, I'd like to move that we accept the 2022-2023 recommended budget for the Board of Education to the tune of $67,767,289.
Second.
Any discussion? Chris?
After Chris.
Yep, gotcha.
I certainly appreciate all the time and energy that went into putting the budget together. And I really want to say yes to it, but unfortunately, I don't feel that I can. I think that there is a lot with the potential we have for consolidation. I think we're missing the boat there. To me, every year that we delay that or ignore it, to me, it's just we're wasting taxpayer funds. And I think also a 3%, roughly a 3% increase with one-time budget savings included would mean, to me, next year, we're talking at least 4%. And to me, we're just on an unsustainable path. So, I hate to say I can't support it, but I can't support it.
Joe?
I will support the Board of Education budget as is, although I have been torn a bit, quite a bit actually, because my intention was to increase it by $41,000 to cover the tax we have on our students to park in our parking lot. That parking lot is paved. It is kept clean. It is snow removed with no additional cost. And yet we find it necessary to tax our students to use it. I've been an advocate for some type of putting in an application, have a lottery, however many spots it is, and whoever's name gets picked out of the lottery gets that spot for that year. I've never gotten my mind around the fact of our budgets for the school being almost 70% of the town's expense, and yet we find a way to charge our students, particularly juniors and seniors. And everybody has the argument, well, we give them a bus. Yes, but on the other side, most of these students go out and work after school, play sports, and have unusual hours after school. And in your junior and senior year, you're looking at expenses out of your pocket or out of your family's pocket, whether it be for dances and trips or proms and parties. New Milford is still it's a blue collar town, and yet we find a way to charge our students. And everybody knows I've been so against this since I've sat here. So I would have done it, but it probably would have pushed their budget over 3%, and that would have been I don't think, a good image across the board. On consolidation, we have spoken about consolidation since the first time I sat on this town council, and Tommy was trying to get me there somewhere about 15 years ago. It goes both ways, and I'll say that. Are we better off sending our IT and HR over to the school side because they have a larger system and perhaps they're better equipped to handle it? Maintenance from the walls out? I don't know. That seems like the easiest approach from the beginning. But the one thing that everybody does is talk about it. Nobody ever sits down and meets, whether it's a subcommittee, a group of council persons in the BOE. It literally just is all talk. And, you know, we may find out that we're not saving a penny on consolidation. But we don't know because there's never any effort to move forward beyond what we hear every single year at budget. With that, I'll conclude for now.
Katie?
Yes, I'll support the Board of Education budget, and I'll also have a however. Having gone to the school system here from the beginning to graduation, I do think that the parking fees are a little outrageous. Maybe that's not right to say a little outrageous. It's outrageous. You know, taxpayers believe that, and I'm not saying that this is necessarily the truth all the way around, but taxpayers believe that the tax they pay provides their children in school an education, pencils, papers, notebooks. I know some of that is sort of old-fashioned, but I do hear that from people. And I think when a taxpayer is the person who pays for the school, the parking area, all of that, as Joe brought it up, to have an additional fee so that their child can drive to school is really unfair. Most kids, they are going to a job, they have younger siblings, they're taking them someplace because the parents are working. And I would like to think that the money, instead of just going into the wherever in the budget, why not target it for some student-centric type of thing? I realize we give buses, but I mean, that's a given. Let's face it. You're not going to find a town that's going to say, well, we're going to charge you to get on the bus. The bottom line is, it's really not fair to the families. The kids shouldn't have to worry about it. Have a lottery, whatever. Split. When I was in high school, we split them. You know, I'd have it 3 days. Hillary'd have it 3 days the next week. That's how we've managed it, and a lot fewer parking spaces. So I would like to see something done with that. I also am a big proponent of collaboration. This is how the world is business-wise is done. People have learned that it's silly to be working next door to another factory doing the same thing, and it's costing you both too much. So I believe that starting with something like the maintenance, the facilities, I think we have had good experience in collaboration on the school roof, et cetera. So if there's a place to start, I would think that would be an easy one. And I also believe in what Joe said, is that I have never, ever, ever, and I've been in this little municipal area here a long time, never seen a town council or a town person and a Board of Ed person ever sit at the same table and talk about stuff. It is a lot of rhetoric from both sides, not putting the blame on anybody, but I think it's time to face the fact that if we want our town to grow, we're going to bring in businesses, et cetera, but not everybody who comes to work in a new business is going to make a lot of money. We don't have enough houses for people who are moderate to low income. They're trying to work, they're getting on the bus and going home to Danbury or Brookfield. They're not spending their money here. We need to bring them back. So I think it's time to look at how we can save money overall. This budget's broken in two, but really it's the whole thing that every one of us here is going to be paying for. So I think it's time to find a way, while we don't want to get in each other's business too much, I hear all the time, I think it's time to sit down and talk. We all don't believe in the same, we don't all agree on everything here, but here we are. We come here, twice a month? And we do it in front of everybody. So, but I'm not gonna walk out of here and shun somebody on the street for it. We're all entitled to an opinion, and so are you in the Board of Ed. And I would really, really love to have, maybe no camera the first time, but just to sit down and talk about it. Because it's more than these books. It's a lot more than that. It's the future of our town. It's families' ability to have a decent life. And most of all, I'll go back, it's all about the kids. So we want good buildings, we want good teachers, we want happy parents, and God knows we need more bus drivers. So I am going to support the budget, but you heard my howevers. Thank you, Mayor.
Tom?
Thank you. I too am going to support the budget this year. I do have some concerns with some one-time savings that we will be using this year that will not be here next year. I mean, look, from what I'm seeing is we've got a $1.4 million increase right out of the gate next year. So couple that with some of the uses of the internal service fund and some maybe bus routes. I'm just concerned that the number is going to start to escalate. Like most of my colleagues here, we all want a great education system, and we're delivering that. I mean, I've been sitting here for 13 years, and it has gotten better and better and better. Great work by the Board of Ed. Wendy has been the chairman for many years with a great group of folks on that board and some great leaders in the administration. But I do have some of those same concerns that my fellow councilmen have. I'm very happy to see that the school and this town did work together on the roofs. This was something that was a long time coming. They've been put off for many years, and the town stepped up to work with the school and put the roofs on. But I also believe that we can do more in collaborating. You know, the three departments for me is the facilities, walls out, IT, which I gotta be very honest with you, has been a disaster this year. I'm getting emails from school to 4 different email addresses, and I've corrected it at least a dozen times. And I'm still getting emails to old emails that are actually pertinent now. I get a little update, but I get all the really important ones to 3 different emails. And I've called a dozen times. I've actually gone to the office. I don't think I know there's a lot of personal information there that is concerning. I understand that. I think there's a way to overcome that. Is it going to happen this year? No, I don't believe it will, but I think it's something we have to talk about this year. HR is another one. You expressed that you did have some issues with some HR, and I think across the board, we can work on that as well. I know there's specialties there, but to have one leader running a department with a group that specializes in education, another group that specializes in municipal employees is not a stretch. Businesses do this all day long, right? And we have to run our town like we have been the last 4.5, 5 years, like a business, and not just because it's the way the book said it. You know, I call it the educational handbook on how to make sure we get everything from the town and deliver to the kids. But in the same breath, look, we have to still have an affordable town. I believe this year the one that can be handled is walls out. That is simple, right? It doesn't impact the children except that are driving into the parking lot. We have a fantastic leadership at the DPW that I'm sure could manage getting snow off of the ground by 6 a.m. in the morning, as you know, as the superintendent was, you know, shared some concerns. And I have those concerns with you too, Superintendent DeCorbo. But I think that's manageable, and that's an easy one. It's the Teamsters. It's all the same union. It's the same folks doing it. It's just we can remove maybe a little bit of level of administrative or supervision that money could be moved towards the kids. A few more paras, some more teachers. I have sat in this room for a long time, and I always wanted to see the money go towards the teachers and the people that are affecting the kids day to day, moment to moment. I know you need a leadership group because of unfunded mandates and many things that you have to report to the state and the feds, but I think we have to keep driving the money down to the kids because that's what we're here to do. The result is a well-educated child that's going to go out, be successful in the world, and hopefully bring that success back to the Milford years from now and raise their family here. I mean, I have a daughter in college, and a lot of her friends are saying, I'm not sure if I'm coming back to New Milford. And that's very sad when you spend years educating and nurturing and hoping that they're going to be the next pillars of our community, and they may be shying away from it. I don't think that's something that we want to encourage. I think we need to just continue to move towards working together and collaborating. I think it'll benefit the school more than it will benefit the town. Quite frankly, I think it will help the school a lot more than just the town. So I will be supporting this. And I think the year that we just had, the last 2 years that we've been through have been unprecedented times. And I'm looking forward to a very collaborative and good year next year. So I'm going to support this budget. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm also going to support the budget with a caveat. I was coming in thinking I might want to add money to support those second graders. I'm very, very concerned. But I've also had conversations with the folks. I'm not going to make an amendment to make the number larger, but I am going to ask again that they come forward as soon as they get nervous about being able to manage those children properly, because that is a real concern. So I'm going to say that. This would be the second year in a row this budget passes, that the recommended budget moves forward without any reduction from the town council. That speaks volumes to me. That speaks to a community that says we support our children. That is a huge message that's so important when everyone's feeling so down about so many things. So that would be, to me, a very strong message. And then begin the conversations. I think it's premature to pick a department, but I think the conversations about collaboration is very healthy, because what's it take? A community to raise children, right? And so we should be doing it together.
Thank you. Sal?
Yeah, so, I will support the budget this year with and I concur with the colleagues that's expressed their opinion before. I feel like some of the services we can actually make a fusion of. AT mentioned a couple times already. There's always way when you do this in a fashion like get things together, specifically for the bargaining. If you're going and trying to get an equipment, you're trying to update something, get a license, whatever that would be, working together, BOE and municipality, it gives you this more buying power, so to speak. And it's not a hypothesis, it's a fact. You go as a community or as a municipality together with the BOE. That's one thing. In this whole BOE discussions, to be honest with you, I had a feeling like we're especially with the BOE and stuff, we're talking too little about the kids themselves. I had a feeling we're talking about BOE as a JP Morgan corporation that wants this money, that money, and everything else. It is true that the kids population is diminishing in New Milford, right? So we have two options. We all know it's going to be the future, one way or the other, the kids. And whether they come back here or not, that would be the development, economic development, money or people that are going to help us actually have this going one way or the other. Hopefully they will, or they should. Anyway, so we have two options, right? Something is going to actually go, and something is going to win in this world. And I just want to have New Milford to win it. How do you do this? The intangible assets that we have in New Milford, tangibles are the buildings and everything else, right? So we have the DPWs running the trucks. And intangible assets are the kids. And in the future budgets, I would like to see more and more emphasis on having, I don't know, maybe more science. I support science all day long. I'm in a AI business or computer business, security business. I'm talking every day with the Singapore, Japan, just the entire world. The kids that are going to graduate from our schools here, they're not going to be competing with Danbury, I can tell you that. Not Southbury, not anything like that. They go right away when they get to the market. 5 years from now, there will be no job, or jobs for the most part, that will not involve those skills. Which means, again, we're even though the kids, the choice we have is basically to get the kids on the level they have to be, because these are the intangible assets. And I would like to next year to hear more and more about programs like this. And talking about the BOE not as a JP Morgan, but as a entity that actually will create a future in this town. Mike?
Yeah, I'm on the fence, but I'm gonna support it. I know that one of your biggest, well, two biggest is your contractual obligations and your unfunded mandates from the state. So and you are there's not a lot of wiggle room. It's just, there's so much there that you guys have no control over. But still, 3% this year, 3% next year, 3% the year after, eventually gets to a point where we gotta say, when are we gonna see some flatter budgets? And that's something that you have to look at long term. I agree with Sal that I wish that we went back to more of the basics at schools as opposed to some of the extras, just because in the world competing on a global market, your sciences and your math and that stuff is everything. And writing a good sentence, it's amazing. It's amazing when I get an email from some younger colleague and I look at it, seriously, they even have spell checks and even highlights the grammar now, and they still don't adjust it. But, so I understand your constraints, and I think you did do a good job, but I think we have to figure out ways to think outside the box going forward, whether it's private, public, partnerships, consolidation, whatever, to try and keep this slow, or increase the grand rate, and then it won't increase taxes. That, those are the other options, and hopefully that'll happen too. I do have one more comment about the parking. It's not a tax, it's a user fee, and it's a privilege. And not everyone gets to use it. In Katy, Connecticut law, until you're halfway through your senior year and you turn 18, you are not taking your siblings. If you have twins, they have to have 2 cars to get to school, or else they're breaking the law. So, but it is still a
I was
privilege.
referring back to the dark ages. When
Yeah.
Sorry, I forgot about that. I don't have any kids that are that age.
But it's just,
Yeah, exactly. In Minnesota.
it's just something that I think that it's a privilege to park your car in that parking lot. And whether it's an add-on or not, we have a lot of things in this town where you pay user fees for, including some of the parks. It's just an add-on. I'm glad that you guys cut it to a point where it doesn't seem out of reach, but it is something kids need to work towards and do. And if they want that privilege, they should do that. Or you do what my cousin did, and you had him park at the Granite place down below, because he's a friend of ours.
Katie?
I just have one more comment, and everything that's been said is all probably true, and then more, and maybe not so. But there was one thing I want to hold you to. Alicia, I had asked about why I was hoping to see more money for counselors, because we all know what the kids have gone through, and you said that you would be handling that through ARPA funds, and I believe you did send a list of the people, the positions that you would be funding, and I thank you for that. I just wanted to say that I will be asking and looking for that next year, because every day, just as you see it more than I do, but the little bit that I see a need for help in all ages and all grades. Not everybody, but some, and I think it's important to have people who are aware and there to help. So I appreciate that you're going to do that.
And kind of lastly, for our council and for those watching and Board of Finance, Walter, as we move forward, some things the town and the Board of Ed have collaboratively worked on together. So some of the things that we've talked about here before is both the town and the board migrating to the state partnership plan, which has saved millions of dollars in cost avoidance by just going with that. Right now, we're currently working on looking together at printers and other options where we look at combining efficiencies and using economies of scale to reduce costs. And we do have at least once a month, and it's many more, where we do have joint meetings with our Board of Education partners. There's times that Greg's been on the call with me.
Call?
The virtual town Google Meets.
Not face-to-face.
Well, unfortunately, we were having those things, but then a thing called COVID happened, and we kind of switched out. We were having beginning talks on how we can look at creating additional efficiencies. Some of that's been mentioned here. And then COVID happened, and we kind of paused off of that. But I know that's one thing that we'll continue to work and have a dialogue, and we'll be bringing that back to you, the council, as we continue to look forward for that stuff. So, again, I'd like to thank the Board of Ed and Superintendent Corporate, who's here tonight as well. And we just continue to work together to do the best services we can for our residents and our children here in New Milford.
Absolutely.
Any other discussion?
And I would like to say something from Mary Jane.
Yep.
Yeah.
I definitely support the Board of Ed budget. When you consider that 75% of the budget is fixed cost, does not leave a lot for anything else, basically. And over the years, the 10-year average increase has only been 1.34%, which doesn't even keep up with inflation. So basically, we've had cuts to the Board of Ed for like the last 10 years. When you look at the other towns in the surrounding areas, Brookfield's increase was 3.6, Bethel 3.9, New Fairfield 3.98, Newtown 4.21, and Danbury, which actually ranks last in the state in per pupil spending, 6.2% increase, And just to remind people that New Milford still is ranking at 155 out of 163 school districts in Connecticut. We've been losing teachers. We have trouble getting substitutes. I think this is a good budget, but it's tight, and I think they deserve everything they can get this year. So I am definitely in support of this budget.
So we have a motion and we have a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Greg, can you give the final tally?
So the mayor's recommended budget passed with the town's being $41,835,714. The Board of Ed being $67,767,289 for a total of $109,603,003. That equates to a mill rate of 28.45, which is a 1.7% increase over this fiscal year.
Thank you, Greg. And again, for those that are watching tonight, now this will move over to the Board of Finance. They will hold their public hearing, and then they will deliberate as well, where if they choose to make any kind of changes, it will be by category only. Correct, Greg?
Yes.
Then once that is completed, then they will actually set the referendum date, and then the budget will go to the public for referendum. I'd like to have an entertainment.
Entertainment?
Entertain a
This
motion.
isn't enough.
I'd like to entertain a motion
Make a motion.
to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you, everyone.
everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Great job.
Thank you.